All right, everybody. Monday, June 19th, 5 p.m., kicking the day off. Got a lot of stuff done around the house. Some people have off today. Some people don't. Was able to catch up on some laundry. Was able to go on a nice little wellness walk in the middle of the day. Was able to lift some weights. Bryce, did you have a similar day off? Do you want to update everybody on what's been going on with you?
Yeah, I did have a wellness walk. I will say that. But yes, my wife and I spent the majority of the day in the hospital. A couple weeks ago, Macy and I welcomed the birth of our first child. So we've been enjoying her for the last couple of weeks. She's not home yet, but we're hoping to have her home soon. But we're really excited about that addition, and it's been an adventure so far, but it's been a really good one. I'm surrounded by women now. I got Winnie, Elsie, and Macy. I think they're starting to rub off on me a little bit. Bill, I was telling you this the other day. I got my first pedicure the other day. Yeah, and I liked it. There's no shame in that game. So yeah, life's good. Life's different. But we're really excited about it.
Bryce, thank you so much for the update. Love to hear it. And we know as the last 2 years have had tremendous success with the For Those to Come golf tournament. We had on Devin Wilson a couple weeks ago, and we really wanted to take this time over this summer to highlight the Monogram Club. And Bryce, I'll allow you to introduce our guest this week.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Really excited about our guest today. To say this woman is all hokey would be quite the understatement. This resume, I'm going to try to keep it brief, but it's a lot of Virginia Tech bullet points. Here we have today we have Whitney Showalter, former women's softball standout, two-time ACC champion with a Women College World Series appearance as well. Following her time at Virginia Tech, she got her master's in education while she was the assistant women's softball coach. And most recently, she spent about 6 years as the director of softball operations. And she joins us today as the new president of the Virginia Tech Monogram Club. Whitney, welcome to the Sons of Saturday.
Thanks, Bryce. Thanks, Billy. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this.
I did have the opportunity today, we were talking about it, to re-up my Monogram Club subscription. So for those of you listening, former athletes, former trainers, former assistants, how many days do we have left, Whitney? How many days?
We have until June 30th, so that way you can purchase your football tickets and sit front row, section 102, 103, right behind the goalpost, south end zone. So if you haven't re-upped or joined at all, now's your chance to do so.
Now, we are Section 5 people. We're really a proud group there. But I will say, I've sat in those south end seats a couple times in Section 102. I think you can sit pretty much like in the front row. I think you mentioned that. It's a pretty great place to watch a game, and I would encourage anyone who has the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, my 3-year-old loves it. We sat front row last year, and she obviously was more excited about the Hokie Bird than the entire game. However, that gave me a chance to watch the game. So it's a win-win situation for everybody, right?
Yeah, who isn't excited about the Hokie Bird? He or she pumps me up. That's for sure. Whitney, obviously we're having you on today. We want to talk about the Monogram Club, and we will get to that. I'd first like to start though with your playing days. So for our listeners at home, when was your first year at Virginia Tech? What position did you play? Can you give us a little background there?
Yeah, so I grew up in Southwest Virginia, about an hour and a half from Blacksburg.
Tazewell High School, right?
Yeah, Tazewell High School. And when my hometown, everybody wanted to be a Hokie or be a volunteer, right? Like we were right on the border for both of those. And so, I went the route of being a Hokie and never looked back. And we were talking about it earlier that I've spent half my life as a Hokie within the department in some way, shape, or form. So that's pretty cool in itself. But my first season was 2007. And, obviously that brings some highs and lows. We had our first ACC championship. It was also, April 16th happened. So for me, I have a lot of pride as a Hokie in a lot of different ways, just because of everything that I've been through in my life as an 18-year-old. That was something that still lives with you on both ends, right? But it was pretty cool to be able to win back-to-back ACC championships. Obviously, play Team USA, and they're bound for Beijing tour, and come back a month later back to Oklahoma City to play in the World Series was pretty special.
Wow, I not to harp on this, but obviously April 16th is 2007 is a really emotional date for the Hokies. That was probably in the middle or towards the end of y'all's season. That to go through that and then to have to go back and play and then winning the ACC championship, that had to be a ton of emotions at that time.
It really was. It's a story that I don't tell often, but when I do, it's pretty meaningful. I actually told the story to UVA softball team last year when they came to town. Their coach called me and asked me if I would meet them at the memorial and just kind of walk through my story with them. And I can remember that we had just gotten back from UNC. We had just won that series. I wake up, I have an 8 a.m. class. It's snowing outside in the middle of April. And so, you start your day and you're like, it's April. Like, why is it still snowing, And we ended up playing that weekend, and it was very emotional. We had state troopers that stayed with us, that became friends with us the rest of the way through the season, anytime that we were home, whether that was practice or walking us to weights or, being there when we got on the bus to leave for wherever we were going next. And it was pretty emotional, but we had a lot to play for, and we wanted to show a lot of pride for our university. And it was very special that weekend when baseball and softball played. We played the University of Maryland, and there was a lot of emotions, but there was so many teams that came through that were just so responsive for us and just, brought us letters or things that they had made us. We got gifts and letters from little kids, teams, everyone across the country. It made it really special.
Yeah, I mean, I can just see the emotion on your face just talking about it. I didn't realize that y'all played so soon after that. That's truly incredible that y'all were able to accomplish everything you did with all that going on as well. It's amazing. I know a big part of that success was Angela Tincher. I think she was an upperclassman at that point, and you already mentioned the USA game, which everyone knows.
She said she had the opportunity to play against Team USA. She didn't mention that they.
I think she threw a perfect.
We did.
Yeah,
well, she was one walk away from a perfect game. Kelly Crutchman, who was a phenomenal hitter, ended up with a walk to break up the perfect game, but she still had a no-hitter. I think that was like the most exciting game, but the most boring game I've ever played in, because there was not a single ball that was hit to the outfield at all. And so, but we watched them play the game before. They played DePaul, and I think even the slappers were hitting home runs. And so it was like, great. Like, one of our dads was there, and he was like, "Are you ready, girls? Did you bring any Bengay with you?" And we were like, "What for?" And he was like, "For all those home runs that are going to go over your heads, like your head's just going to snap like, whoo, whoo, there it goes, So it was pretty funny. We warmed up in Oklahoma City. There's all these fields. You have your main field, and then behind the scenes, there's warm-up fields. And everything that we heard when we were warming up was just like another home run, and the score just kept piling up, and we were like, great, like they're already just on a mission, and we're in for it, and I'll never forget their head coach, when we walked out, he was like, "Good luck, girls, we got all the hits out of them," and we were all just like laughing about it, and then lo and behold, Angela no hits them.
Question, are you of the school of belief where you don't mention the no-hitter that's going on?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even like the games that I call now, I think Bailey Engel and I called a couple games last year that ended up, they were pretty close to being no hitters. And, the producer behind the scenes is like, "Hey, you guys have to mention it." And I'm like, "No, we don't. Like, you cannot do that." Even though I'm supposed to be unbiased and everything, I was like, "No, please don't mention it. Because as soon as you do, something's going to happen." Right.
That has to be a weird thing as the announcer, because if someone's tuning into the game and say they missed the first inning or the second inning, and they're trying to follow along here, they might not understand the significance of what's going on if no one's mentioning it.
Yeah. I'm like, just look at the scoreboard or look at like the little box on your TV, like we don't have to mention it.
There's a lot of zeros up there. It might be only
there
zeros.
are quite a few zeros, I don't want to speak of it, but there are quite a few zeros.
Bill, I think you and I would have a really hard time with that in the dugout, because we love to talk. And if we're not allowed to talk, I think we'd go crazy.
No, I think it's and I know this is being a lifelong watcher of Jacob deGrom when he played for the Mets, you kind of do the eye communication where you're like, we're on the same page. Okay, yeah, we're watching the same game. We know where we're standing. So you can get the point across with a glance or a look.
Is it kind of like that glance to be like, has anyone reached base?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's
That's how many in a row?
Huh. Okay. Yeah. All right.
I want to dive into let's move on to the coaching days here. Bryce, I know you had a couple about coaching.
Yeah. Now we're on phase 2 of your Virginia Tech career. We have graduated, and we are now working towards our master's. I believe in master's in education. I think I did my research right there. Correct me if I'm wrong. And now you're acting as an assistant coach for the girls. Was that the plan all along, or did the coach say, "Hey, we would love to get you involved if you have interest," or how did that come about?
Yeah. So honestly, I was supposed to go to pharmacy school. And my senior year, I was sitting in on my PCAT, and I was a licensed pharmacy technician all through college, just random. And I was like, what the heck am I doing? Like, I love athletics. I love sports. I can do more here. And so, Scott, Barb, and Al were like, just stay. So I got my first master's, did my student assistant, volunteer assistant years, and really learned a lot from them during that time. Was very gracious that they let me stay, not only the student assistant year. I was going to leave and go to actually Marshall to be the volunteer assistant under Coach Shonda Stanton, who's now the head coach at Indiana. And Barb Sherwood, who was our assistant at the time, was like, no, you're not. Like, you're staying. So I ended up staying that next year. And then from there, just once they created the director of ops position, it was just a no-brainer that it was going to be a position that I was going to fill, that I was excited to fill for, the first time that they had the position, and ended up getting my second master's during that time, and just living the Hokie dream, right?
I've always wanted to ask this question. When you go from player to coach, how do you change the relationship from someone who's on the team that's older to them to someone that they sort of report to? How did you handle that?
Yeah, actually, I was just talking to a couple of people this weekend at Keely Richard's wedding about that, because it's a very interesting dynamic. When you're the 18 to 22-year-old in Blacksburg, and then like when you're in that 23 to almost 30 range, and it's kind of like, what the heck do I do now type thing, So I think for me, I spent a lot of time with our staff, right? Just hanging out with them and people in the department. Especially like the younger, the 23 to 27-year-olds in the department that were just kind of figuring out their way of life and what they were doing, and just enjoying all the things and starting your career all together, and everybody's kind of in the same boat trying to figure out life and what they're supposed to be doing. So it was pretty cool. Now,
when you're watching the team versus when you were playing for the team, which one are you more nervous? Are you more nervous playing, or more nervous because you can't necessarily control the outcome?
Yeah, that's a very interesting dynamic. I think probably when you're not playing, like on the flip side of it, and probably even more so as the director of ops than even as like the student assistant, volunteer assistant, because like I had no on-field responsibility. So anything that happened within the chalk lines, like I had no control over. I did literally everything else. So that was hard for me just to, to see that, and for some of them to not understand, like once it's over, it's over, like you can't go back, and you really wish that you could be there again. And so that's pretty hard dynamic to have zero control over what you're watching happen.
Moving on to I won't call it phase 3, but because I know you've been involved with the Monogram Club and former student athletes and former softball players for a long time. But we are here to talk a little bit about the Monogram Club. Let's start with what's been your historical involvement. I know with the director of operations, you had close relationships with a lot of the girls. I'm sure you keep up with them.
Yeah.
But how did you get involved with the Monogram Club?
So in 2014, 2015, when I started as the director of ops, Sharon McCloskey came calling. And I don't know if you all know Sharon very well. She was our SWA for forever, and I think the absolute world of Sharon. But when Sharon asks you to do something, it's kind of, you're not going to say no. And you don't want to say no. I guess I should put it that way. She's one of my favorite people on this earth. And so she was like, Whitney, I need you to join the Monogram Club. We're trying to revamp it. I need you to be our sport representative for softball and really help this thing grow. And so I've been on the board since then. So that was pretty special to be able to sit on the board with some of our older alumni that had previously been part of the Monogram Club when it was kind of a huge deal back in the day with Russ Whiteneck and all those guys that really got it started. And to see the growth that we've had even just since 2015 till now, even before I took over, has been pretty special.
I feel like with organizations like this, and I've heard it from many people as I'm trying to get more involved with it, it's definitely a whatever you make of it kind of role or opportunity. You can be as involved as you want to be. Obviously, with your new title, you're the head honcho. You're very involved. What made you want to be someone who was a director or a part of it to being, hey, I want to be the head of this organization. I want to be the president.
It was hard for me to walk away from the department in general, somewhere that I love more than anything and have just my heart and soul is there, right? And so I knew that I still wanted to do as much as I could for the department and within the department, even if I wasn't there on a daily basis. And when Brian Walter and a couple others called me and were like, Whitney, I think this is you. Like, I think you're the next person. There was a couple of questions that I asked at first. One, had there ever been a female president before, which there hadn't. And two, what's the direction that we think that we're moving forward with this? And, when I heard a couple other people's visions for it and what they thought when they thought of me, like why specifically me for this role, I realized that I had a lot to give. And every way, shape, and form, right? I still live in Blacksburg. My kids are Hokies through and through. I mean, we just drive through the town just so that way they can see all the Hokie birds around, right? And I was really excited for this role because, one, to have a second female president, there has to be a first, right? And so, that's very near and dear to me and something that I want it to be a success for that purpose. I also want it to be a success for everyone our age, right? Like we've talked about it multiple times, and I think that everyone from within the few years that we've had and right after us, we just need more to come back. And I understand that it's hard. We're starting our careers, we're going to grad school, we're starting our families. But I think if we can show, and I can show that it's possible to do these things, then we'll have success bringing more and more of our younger generations, our younger alumni back and making it a big impact.
Billy and I always talk about that we have the sickness. Like we just love this school so much and we wish we could give more to it. And we're really thankful that there's people like us and people like you that just, you can't step away. You just have to be involved. You want to do whatever you can to make this the best university in the country. And, we're really thankful that people like you are involved and want to stay involved and, want to lead, great organizations that we have. As we look to your reign, if that's what we can call it, what are some of the changes you're hoping for in your time as president?
Yeah, so I think of a few things just off the top of my head. I want our membership to grow. I want everyone to feel welcome when they're coming back. And not only coming back, like I want to take some of these events that we have and bring them to our alumni because it's not always easy for us to get back year after year. I'm very blessed that I still get to be in Blacksburg all the time, but there's a lot of people that don't. And so I would like to see, some of these, like a happy hour in Charlotte hosted by Bryce Shockley, right? And
I don't know if anybody would show up to that.
But having the Monogram Club behind that and just being able to pull our alumni together wherever we are. I think about in 2015, our team played in Hawaii. And one of the first things that I did when I took over as the director of ops was I started looking up all these hockey clubs wherever we were going, wherever we were playing. And it was a huge success because a lot of these teams, they know where basketball's playing, they know where football's playing. But for Olympic sports, they didn't really know a whole lot of it. And so when we went to Hawaii, it was like playing a home game in Blacksburg. It was so awesome to have so many Hokies in Hawaii that were there. And I still follow them on Facebook and just see that the group and how proud that Hokies are, right? And I think that's one thing that I've realized and that we all kind of know and talk about is just how proud of a tradition it is. And so why can't we just do that on a daily basis? Like, we don't always have to come back to Blacksburg to be proud to be Hokies, right? Like we can do that in Virginia Beach. We can do that in Hawaii. We can do that overseas, right? So why can't we do some of those things? Maybe it is during football season and it's a really cool Thursday night game that it's just hard for people to get off work and to come back for 2 days. So I think that's going to be something that'll be really cool is to be able to do that. And that will twofold help us to grow our memberships too, right? Because I think if we're making having a good product that people want to be part of, then more people want to be a part, want to join and want to see all that we're doing.
I gotta say, Whitney, you fired me up there to be a part of Hokie Nation. You hit the nail on the head. The two things that you said I really wanted to point out for everyone listening is one, people need a reason to come back to Virginia Tech, but not a big one. Like the smallest reason, just like just an excuse. It doesn't have to be a grand thing. I've definitely seen that. And two, for people who aren't able to get back, hearing that story about Hawaii, if you move to a new city, there's a high likelihood that there's at least Hokie Nation behind you there. Don't be afraid to go to those mixers. Right? You might think it's silly, but I promise it's not. Like you have that community everywhere, and it's okay to lean on it.
I'll double down on that, Bryce. And people know about the travels. Every time when I was moving across the country and I was living in California and Colorado, I was like, oh well, we're just gonna put out on the Twitter where we're going and stuff. And the first time I went, I wanted to go see what it would be like without mentioning it. And we went down to Bub's on the beach in San Diego. There are like 50, 60 people in there watching our football game. We were playing like Wofford or something at 11 o'clock. The game started at 8 a.m. in San Diego, and you got 50 or 60 people in there. In Denver, when we were winning the ACC, there was a bar in Breckenridge that we all went to. That place was packed.
Yeah, been there.
I always say fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. I always say this: whether you're a former student or a former athlete, going to these events can seem a little bit intimidating, but everybody there is going for the sole reason of meeting somebody else, and you never know what one of those conversations can lead to. Don't go for it.
Absolutely.
Don't look for it going to get something out of it, but I guarantee you will get something out of it every single time that you do it. So
absolutely. I mean, how many times do you go through an airport and somebody sees your shirt or your hat and you just hear it go Hokies randomly, right? Like, I mean, I was on the beach last weekend, walking down the beach. My toddler has a hat on, a Virginia Tech hat on, and this older couple comes up to him and it just tells him go Hokies. I mean, Hokies are everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I love that. And I love how much of a family type atmosphere that we have. And I think some people think we're crazy, right? And they're like, we just don't understand.
We are.
But from the outside looking in, they don't get it. But from the inside, how special it is to be a Hokie. So I have a lot of pride in that.
None of my coworkers know where each other went to college, but everyone knows
They know where
I
you
to
went.
college.
Absolutely. It should be that way, you know? So in my new role, I work remote. But my boss is a Seminole, and she's going to the women's Final Four. It was an event that I was supposed to go to, but ended up I was going to sit it out because I was planning another event for us in Colorado. And the first thing that happens is she texts me like right when our women's team was getting ready to win, and was like, "When you make it, I will buy your flight and I will fly you down here like tomorrow." And sure enough, she did. And so
Wow.
when we got there too, like I had bought her a women's Final Four shirt, and sure enough, she wore it. Like, I mean, she was so proud to wear this Hokie shirt for us. And I think that's just special too, that you can see people get it. Like people are starting to get it even from the outside, like how special it meant to me and to us to be there. Right.
That's so fun. Bill, just on a quick tangent. I think we need to create like a Virginia Tech like power rankings of all like the bars or sports bars across the country to view.
Ooh, sold. Yes.
I think we need to do that. I know that's not the purpose of this podcast, and maybe it should
Right.
be, but I like the Brick in Charleston.
I
would
mean,
be
that's
there.
solid.
I'm sure.
Yes,
everybody would have
100%.
It'd be
Okay.
really fun.
Do you all know the backstory for the Brick though? Like it was started by people that worked
at
Tots, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
we've
so
been a bunch.
my assistant coach, Al Bronze, started Tots in the 70s.
Yeah. Adam's a good friend of ours.
Okay, so you know the Bronze family, yeah. So Adam and JB, and a couple of times that we played in Charleston, we definitely Coach B wanted to take a trip by the Brick just to see some former coworkers, right? But yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I have a shirt from the Brick that says something about a rail at the Brick, right?
There you go. Well, Bill, that's some homework for us.
Yes.
We need an out of Virginia bar power rankings. We will work on that. But
that'll be the
Whitney
poll tomorrow. Speaking of the family atmosphere, and I think just overall familiarity, I loved to see that Devin Wilson is back in Blacksburg and that he has a role in the Monogram Club. Not just a great player for Virginia Tech, but just a bubbly personality. Don't know if he's ever been described by an athlete friend, but he's got such a bubbly personality. He's awesome. He's outgoing. Tell me a little bit about what kind of boxes he checks for you all, and what you're excited to see him do in the new role.
Yeah. So when Devin interviewed, I had the opportunity to eat lunch with all the candidates, and I really loved his forward thinking. We both have an MBA, and so some of the marketing background that we both have, it was pretty cool just to be able to sit there and have a conversation about, growing our social media and just how do we interact with our younger generations and meeting them where they're at, right? Because we're in a very unique situation where we cross several different generations, and how do you get that most out of outreach? And so I loved his thought process. I loved how much he loved being a Hokie, right? Like we talk about it all the time. We've talked about it this whole time. And I think it's just something special that he wants to grow it and is so passionate about it and sees so much potential with the Monogram Club. I think one thing that we've missed or been missing as a Monogram Club board is that we're all volunteers. And so I don't know that a lot of people realize that, but every single one of us on the board, officers, we all volunteer our time just to give back to our former student athletes and our peers. And so having somebody that can be there on the day-to-day basis and doing some of the things that we need, and looking up some of the data, some of the research, tracking down some of our alumni for us. It's just having that constant person that can be there to help us with some of those things that I think is invaluable, and that's really going to help us move this club forward.
So from a student athlete's perspective, a former student athlete's perspective, why should somebody join the Monogram Club?
Well, I think there's several things, right? Like, we have tailgates every football game that are free, and we're in lot 1. We actually just found out last week that we're going to be right beside all the football alumni tailgates. So Billy, I'll see you there. And we're working to do more and more things for our peers. So whether that's tailgates for football games, whether that's happy hours before some men's and women's basketball games, whether that's the tunnel event. I mean, how cool is it that we get to go through the tunnel every year and stand on the field for Enter Sandman? Like there's people that would pay tens of thousands of dollars just to be able to do that once, and we do it every year. So to be able to do some of those things and to interact with, some of the current student athletes and, just to see something that you've helped grow and to see where it's going to is pretty damn cool.
Speaking of the perks, what do you think is the most underutilized perk that comes along with it? I remember one of the things that was really awesome. I was living out in San Diego at the time, and you all did the a piece of home box that came out. It had a cap with the football number on the side, and it's not anything crazy. You always hear about former players. This is not a dig. This is all universities. You all hear about former players who they don't do enough. I don't get enough tickets. I don't do enough of this. And I think you all are providing a lot of what people would really, really want. They just don't know where to go ahead and get it. So just newsflash, if you're a former player, going ahead and texting someone in the athletic department the night before and saying, I would like tickets to the biggest football game of the year.
It doesn't work that way.
Probably not the best strategy, but what are some of the perks and some of the things that what is the most underutilized perk of the Monogram play?
Honestly, I think you said it. I think it's the football tickets. And so, a lot of people ask, like, why do I have to join by June 30th to get these tickets? And it's just so that way we can kind of see collectively how many tickets that are needed, right? For Hokie Club and to be able to sell season single game tickets, season tickets, whatnot. So we have this space that's just for Monogram Club members. It's just for our former student athletes to be able to sit. And I can even remember, like, my freshman year as a student athlete, we still had to go through the lottery to get tickets to go to football games. And so now it's guaranteed. Like, you can get up to 4 tickets. We pay for them, but I mean, to sit front row and it's a guaranteed ticket, like, I don't have to get in a lottery. I don't have to, pay all this money to sign up for the Hokie Club and then to give the membership and then to do this to get my tickets. Like, that's just invaluable, I think. And, especially since we're providing the tailgate and everything for you already, it's just kind of like a show and go type thing, right? So I think that's a really big one that I think is underutilized right now that people are starting to capitalize on, but I don't think that they fully realized how much they could get out of that, especially when it comes to some of the big games, right? Like Notre Dame comes to town and they can get tickets to that. Thursday night football games, like, everybody wants to go to that game, right? So even if it's just that that you want to come to one game a year, like, you can buy that ticket for that game to be able to come, which is pretty cool.
And to echo you, just in case people aren't fully grasping this, you can get tickets for any of the big games. I believe the charge, while it's not free, I want to say it's face value.
It is, yeah. I mean, they're not charging more than that. So that's pretty impressive in itself.
You've seen what Ticketmaster is doing with Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
You don't want to buy
Absolutely.
these tickets.
Yeah.
You don't want to buy these tickets late.
Yeah.
So, like, when Purdue comes to town, and which is going to be a big game this year, it's a nice option. And like you said, these tickets aren't in row T, which exist, I believe. They're in row A, right in the south end zone. You can see the whole play open up. They're great. I've sat there before. I definitely agree with you there. I think it's a perk that a lot of people aren't aware of, and that itself is worth a membership.
Moving right along here to our last segment here, rapid fire segment. First question I ask everybody: if you could have dinner with 4 people, dead or alive, who would they be, and where are you going to eat?
Ooh, that's a good one. I love me some Betty White. I gotta throw Jesus in there. I mean, Jesus is your homeboy, right? I would throw Audrey Hepburn.
That's it.
Right? Like, Betty White and Jesus, like, you can't get better than those two, right? I'm a big fan of Audrey Hepburn, big fan of Marilyn Monroe, so maybe that's my 4. I don't know. I might throw Ronald Reagan in there.
What a group.
You like some
Yeah,
old school
yeah.
women.
I'm a history. Yeah, like yeah. But I really love history too. So that's a pretty good question.
That was probably the fastest answer that we've gotten on that one. It usually takes people a couple minutes. Where are you gonna go eat?
I just
and why are you taking them to Kabuki?
In Blacksburg, Christiansburg, Virginia, right? I mean, does it? If it was in Blacksburg, I would say the Cellar, hands down. I'm obsessed with the Cellar.
It's the best place to eat in Blacksburg.
We're big Cellar fans.
Yeah, big Cellar fan, Cellar fan. So I'll go with that. If we'll keep it in Blacksburg, and I'll say the Cellar.
Best memory at Virginia Tech on and off the diamond.
Ooh, I mean, you have to say beating Team USA, right? Like, and going to the World Series. Like, those are two like non-negotiables that are just like, standing in the outfield. But when you break up a 185 game win streak, like that's pretty freaking sweet. So that night, that whole night, in the night, the celebration that happened afterwards was pretty invaluable for us. Well, that's an off podcast story for you for later. But yeah, off the field, I think it's pretty special now that I still, I had my daughter while I was director of ops, and she was always at practice, even still. My son and Pete Demore's son are 3 weeks apart, and so pretty cool that they get to play. They still run around in the infield, and my daughter thinks like she owns the place when she comes to the field. So we just got back from Keely Richard's wedding, and Camden and Keely are like best friends. So I guess she knows how to pick them right. But that's pretty cool, is to be able to see that kind of work itself out to where it's your family getting to see some things too, the places that you love.
Okay, so bottom of the 7th, 1-run lead, Angela Tincher or Jordy Ball?
Oh, Angela, hands down. They're both going to crow hop, right? Like, and you can say that, like, Angela got called for 1,001 illegal pitches too, but I think she was a lot more illegal than Jordy Ball. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. But yeah, I would take Angela hands down.
I hope we play the Cornhuskers next year. What was your walk-up song in college, and what would your walk-up song be today?
So one of my walk-up songs was "She's Country" by Jason Aldean. I grew up in coal country USA, right? And so I had a lot of country music as my walk-up songs. That was pretty cool.
What's harder to hit, a fastball or a rise ball?
Rise ball, hands down.
I believe that.
And Angela Tincher, rise ball. that.
Whitney, this has been awesome. We are so excited to see all the awesome things coming out of the Monogram Club. Even in the last year, I remember when I had heard about it, I had no idea what it was. You said Monogram Club,
right?
I had no idea what it was. I'll never forget Mr. Saunders came up to me in Atlanta, Georgia at the World of Coke.
Right. Yep.
And, he said, "You look like you play football. Have you ever heard of the Monogram Club?" I was like, "No, sir, I have not." I joined, and watching the growth year after year has been absolutely fantastic. Love to see what you're doing. And one of the things we talked about during the podcast was people do need the smallest excuse. And it was awesome seeing the turnout of all the different sports. I remember the one conversation I had was, I just was shooting everybody a text. "Hey, there's this golf event." I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks before. And Michael Brewer was like, "Oh, we're playing golf on the spring game?" "Yeah, I'll do that." So it's a great opportunity to get involved, great opportunity to come back and just keep up the awesome work. And we're looking forward to watching this continue to grow.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me. Yeah, we're really excited about it. Keep coming home every weekend in the fall. Well, obviously, we have our big reception, spring game weekend, Friday night every year. And we have for those to come that day, the golf tournament, our endowment scholarship, that we are proud to say that we are giving away our first endowed scholarship from the Monogram Club. So
Woo!
that will go out soon. We've eclipsed that 100,000 mark. And it only took us 3 years instead of 5. So that's pretty cool that our alumni are also giving back for those to come.
$50. That's like 3 trips to
That's
Chipotle
nothing.
with me. I get the double meat and everything. It's probably more trips to Chipotle for other people. So Awesome job, Whitney. Thank you so much. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Whitney.
All right. Thanks for having me.